Now, far enough away from that molten lava, a British expedition has parachuted into an underwater cave and squeezed through a muddy tunnel.
The gloom of an underwater cavern makes this one of the most dangerous and sinister of places, somewhere one only visits for a very good reason. A British expedition of scientists and these divers have come to search for creatures that are living fossils, species that have remained almost unchanged for over 150 million years. These caverns are their extraordinary refuge. The eastern coast of Grand Bahama is a hostile, rugged place. Away from civilization, the sandy beaches and tourist resorts, the rocky foreshore is fringed by treacherous coral reefs and winding tidal creeks. It is a drowned land where movement is only by sea or by air. There is only one way to get there in a hurry. Ace parachutist Leo Dickinson drops in the way he knows best. The island below is made of limestone. Beneath the surface, the rock is riddled with caves. The entrances to these caves look most obvious from above. They have an enigmatic name. They're called blue holes. The caves that lie beneath this sea are alive with color and movement. The passages near their entrances are coral reefs in disguise. The twilight of the cave mouth provides safe shelter for a host of marine life. Divers' lights are essential to reveal it. Tidal currents waft a steady flow of food into the cave, so it's a good place to live, and competition for space on the walls is intense. The creatures that encrust the walls are filter feeders, sponges and other animals that anchor themselves permanently there and sift and strain the water of the cave for the food it contains. The inflowing current surges at the mouth of the cave. A luckless sea slug grazing on the algae in the twilight zone is swept from its meal into the blue hole. The rushing inflow is a signal for activity. The increase in organic debris, the main source of food for many of the cave animals, bring fan worms from their tubes. The tentacles of these tiny animals help it to feed as well as to breathe. As they filter the passing water, the delicate tracery ensnares tiny particles of food. This is ferried down the feathers into the mouth of the worm. The filter feeders form the turf of the cave. Other creatures, like the measle cowrie, are the grazers. The cowrie makes its meal on corals and sea squirts, prey that cannot escape this roving hunter. There are other grazers, like the arrow crab, whose feeding arrangement is helpful to other creatures. It seeks the choicest lumps of debris, the largest fragments which might otherwise clog the filtration systems of the creatures on the walls. All this activity, this underwater metropolis, exists in perpetual darkness. Only now do the divers' lamps reveal it briefly. It is a world of touch. Sight, in the inner caves at least, counts for nothing. Banded coral shrimps, scurrying along the walls, use their long antennae to steer them clear of obstacles en route. In crevices near the entrance, well hidden, they find the night hunters of the outside reef taking shelter from the heat of the day. As the tidal currents change direction, the bustle slows. The last of the debris falls from suspension in the water. It takes on a blue translucence that clearly shows how the caves gained their name. But how were they formed in the first place? Over 100,000 years ago, rain falling on the island collected in a lens-shaped reservoir on top of saturated rock. Gentle tidal movements along the boundary between them caused water to dissolve the rock and form tiny cavities. As the tidal flow removed the solution, the caves gradually became larger. Later, during the ice ages, ocean levels fell by over 100 meters. Without support from the sea, deep fractures opened at the edge of the island along the steep underwater drop-off. Where these fractures spread sideways, they created entrances to the caves, now underwater as the seas rose again. Viewed from above, these deep cave openings are the blue holes of the Bahamas. These marine caverns are part of one long fracture that runs inland away from the coast. This area of the Bahamas is rarely explored, a maze of muddy creeks fringed by mangroves and backed by rock and impenetrable woodland. Following the fracture from the air, the team reaches a series of shallow lakes in the center of a small island. Here are dark openings, not blue, but black holes in the floor of the lakes. Approaching them is not easy. The north shore of the small island, nearest to the lake, presents an intertwining barrier of mangroves. But the expedition luckily finds a small creek which provides a way through the maze. Progress is difficult. Rob Parker and Julian Walker, the two divers, haul the boat by hand along the narrow, overgrown channel. The path to the lakes lies across an ankle-shattering landscape of limestone rock. Sharp thorn scrub tears at their legs. Tons of diving equipment have to be carried in the hot Bahamian sun. It takes several trips for the two divers to ferry all their gear to the lakes. This intertidal wasteland is part of the Iron Shore, the residence of a scavenging population who survive as best they can amongst the barren rocks, beachcombing between the tides. Near the lakes, the woodland thickens, fringing the waters with dense foliage and brightly colored orchids. The two divers, Rob and Julian, prepare to explore the mysterious black holes. It's potentially a very dangerous form of underwater exploration. Many items, especially the breathing equipment, must be duplicated and has to be totally reliable. There are no second chances in these underwater conditions. The water of the shallow lake is brackish and unexpectedly warm. Below the surface, conditions are ideal for algal growth in an organic broth that nourishes both plant and fragile jellyfish alike. The eerie landscape is inhabited by a host of peculiar creatures. An upside-down jellyfish called Cassiopeia that turns its tentacles to the sky. Tiny, single-celled plants live within the pulsating mass. The medusa's inversion allows these simple plants to photosynthesize, getting their energy from the light of the sun. At the edge of the lake, fringed with algal fronds, lie the mysterious black holes. Descending into this underworld is risky, and so the divers trail a line, crucial to their survival. This thin cord is their only link through the labyrinth to the world outside, literally a lifeline. Should they become disorientated, they leave markers on the line to show the way back. Their vision is limited to the narrow beam of their torches. But this is enough to show them that these submarine catacombs are completely different to the blue holes at sea. When these black caves were first forming, the ground above them fractured as the sea level fell. Rainwater trickling down the cracks dissolved more rock and formed stalagmites and stalactites within the caves. In places, the already weakened roof collapsed, forming openings to the surface above. Even when the water rose, flooding the passages once more, the cracks continued to provide a route into the cave. Forest debris rotting in the freshwater layer could gradually fall through into the caverns below. There are no strong currents in these inland black holes to provide the sustenance for life. Just as well, such currents would have long ago destroyed the beauty of the cave formations. The gentle filtration of organic debris from above is the clue to understanding that even here, life can lurk in the most distant corners of the caves. Few of the creatures here bear a close resemblance to those in the blue sea caves. Even the fan worms are different. In the inland caves, with the absence of predators, their tubes grow boldly, convoluted coils of calcite, often over 1 meter long. The worms themselves are less robust. The rain of debris is slow, so food is a scarce commodity. The animals are extremely sensitive to the slightest pressure change or hint of danger, and the wake of a diver drives them quickly back inside. Few fish reach the caves, but one that actually makes its home in this black world is Lucifuga, the blind cave fish of the Bahamas. Its eyes have degenerated over the ages and are now merely black spots beneath the skin. But it makes up for that by other senses. Feeling the pressure waves from the divers, it knows which way to head for cover. But the very special animals of this underworld are much harder to find. Returning to their camp on the shore of the island, the team of scientists and cave divers thrash their way back through the rough scrub with a generator and powerful lighting units. Illuminating the caves should make the hunt for the most elusive creatures of the perpetual night much easier. Getting the gear to the lakeside is less fun. The tourist brochures ignore the bits behind the beach. Arriving back at the cave entrance, Rob Palmer, the expedition leader, and Peter Scoons, the underwater cameraman, decide how best to tackle the problem.
Not a very good entrance there.
No, it's pretty spectacular inside though, Pete.
Their first objective is to find a large cavern to illuminate, and it takes them through an area of massive collapse. Placing the lights in the cave is an intricate task. Coils of cable could ensnare Rob and Julian, and they have to move slowly and very carefully to avoid damaging the delicate crystal formations that surround them. Up on the surface, the generator is primed and started in readiness. Deep in the cave, the divers hang suspended in the Stygian gloom and wait. For the sake of safety, the timing has to be precise. For the very first time, the caves are revealed in the light of 3 cold suns. They swim up into the underground dawn. The astonishing clarity of the deep cave water allows stalactites and stalagmites formed over 40,000 years ago when the cave was high and dry to be seen at last in their full splendor. Out in the lake, biologists Sarah Cunliffe and Rob Palmer prepare to join those below, for the search is now seriously on for signs of life unique to this cave system. In the lake, they pass through a strange series of water layers of different salinity and temperature. Torches go on and last-minute checks are made as they pass through the constricted entrance and descend. In the quiet waters of the illuminated chamber, the search begins. Some of the creatures here are barely visible to the human eye. These microscopic organisms of the perpetual night are relics of an era before the dinosaurs walked the earth. The smallest are ostracods, lowest in the pecking order of cave life, barely the size of a pinhead. A hitherto unknown species of thermospination. Not much to look at, but a thrill for a zoologist. Isopods, tiny feeders in the cave sediments. And amphipods, translucent specks in the dark cave water. But the most fascinating creature of all is still the most elusive. In 1982, in a similar cave on the island, an entirely new type of crustacean was discovered. Rarely seen since, it haunts the open cave, a swift swimmer. It's called Remipedia. A blind cave fish swims by unnoticed as Rob and Sarah hunt. But another, smaller speck is caught in the beam of a torch. The tiny remipede is a primitive but tenacious life form, most closely related to fossil remains over 150 million years old. A relative newcomer to life on Earth confronts one of life's ancient survivors, a giant in aquatic armor and a microscopic dragon. The struggle is uneven and brief. Inside the jar, they can see the grace of the tiny creature's rhythmic motion. Closer in, the view is more savage. Remipedia is a hunter, the high-level predator of the cave. Sharp mandibles hold prey close, gripping it to the mouth. Back in the cave, it moves with a hunter's grace, a dancer in the halls of time. Divers and a dancer among inhospitable surroundings. Such is the curious world of science. But the combination of the discovery of a living fossil, albeit tiny and obscure, together with the ideal of conserving this magical place is surely justification enough for the dedication, the difficulties, and the dangers involved.